Moving on to our next project, we take a tour of a house that Christina and her team have done some major renovations to.
The panel, that's a quarter-inch short. So we had to do something in the corner. So all these are just sitting here. Nothing's nailed in.
I like it.
So I want to see if that's okay.
I think that's beautiful.
Okay, yeah, we had extra, so I figured, hey, let me throw something together.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Okay.
I like it a lot. I think it looks better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And give it some detail, so.
Oh, this is pretty, right?
Oh yeah, this
good.
is really nice.
I think she'll like it. She saw it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she loves it.
With so many projects on her plate, how does the mother of four find a work-life balance?
That's a tricky one. I feel like I probably don't do as good of a job as I should, especially with my personal life, because, you know, as a mom, your kids come first and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
And then work. I feel a very tight responsibility to my work, not only because it's my company, but it's just my personality. You know, when I worked for someone else, it was the same. When I worked in the hospital, it was the same. It's just my personality. Yeah. And I won't let something, I don't want to disappoint people, and I don't want to like drop something that I'm responsible for. And so I know like I suffer, like my personal life suffers, and like I always tell my friends, I don't know why you guys are still my friends, but I really appreciate that you are, because I can never go anywhere or do fun stuff, you know. I squeeze it in when I can, and it's usually something big, like, oh, let's take a trip, you know, because it's like all planned or whatever. But yeah, I think probably other people do a better job than me of balancing everything.
That being said, be able to have a business, because that's like something, especially with me being, because I am single, I don't have children responsibilities, but I find like when you don't have responsibilities, like something to keep you on track, like you can just kind of go freeform and forget like, no, you should get up and get work done, like even though you don't have responsibilities. Like, so I feel like it kind of gives you an edge a little bit to be like, okay, I got to get stuff done, because I don't get time to just waste, because I do have to take care of all these priorities.
That's true, because I know some people will be like, oh, how do you have time, you know, how do you have time to work out like every day? How do you have time to like do whatever? And I'm like, I don't know, I take the time I have, you know, like we all have the same amount of time. I don't know, I get up early, I go to bed late, I don't sleep very much, but you know, it does kind of force you, you're right, it does kind of force you to like get the stuff done, because you don't have a choice otherwise.
Exactly.
There are many layers that go into an interior design project. A project doesn't just start by adding beautiful pieces into the home. Before the glitz and glam comes the, well, we'll call it the process. The process goes a bit like this. First, Christina gets the architectural plan from the architect after he meets with the clients and lays out the designs for the home.
So this is typically kind of the process that we go through. So I'll get an architectural plan from the architect that they want to send for permitting. So they'll release it to me. By this time, usually the client has sat down and looked at this plan with the architect, and then I'll get it and I'll be like, what the heck is this? This doesn't make any sense. And then I go through the rest of the house and, you know, kind of do that.
So how do you understand? So when I see it, I'm like, this looks like, you know, some kind of like formula that I don't understand. So how do you understand
So on an architectural plan, every line has a meaning. Every line weight has a meaning. So if it's a lighter line, it means something. If it's a darker line, it has another meaning. If there's a hash through it, it means that it's like a structural wall. So everything that's marked on here has a meaning. And then you'll see like every room has a label, every window has a label, and then there should be a corresponding schedule to tell you what each of those things mean. So like over here, you can see they've placed in a legend, which they don't always do, which this is nice so that you can tell this is going to be a concrete masonry wall. This is non-bearing, a bearing wall. That means it's bearing weight. Means it can't be manipulated within the structure without the roof line changing. So there's lots of things like you have to pay attention to and know what you're doing in order to make changes that make sense.
Then she would go through the plan to check for changes.
So we'll kind of scope through this and decide like, you know, what we think is odd or anything that we want to change. This is like, this will tell you everything from every single door that's listed and what the size are, the square footage of each space, all of the windows and what their heights and shapes are.
And this is good for you guys, because then you're able to figure out what to put into the caption.
And then you'll see that they'll include like plumbing and electrical here. And this is another thing that we always have to look through, because this is something that we change as designers, at least myself, a lot. I find myself changing the locations of those which sometimes requires a re-permitting. So we try to jump into this process very early on to avoid delay in the build.
You have to know like a lot of math, like to be able to do this right.
There's a lot of mathing every day.
Then she will send them her desired plans along with elevations.
What I'll do is I'll create my plan. Like, I'll come back and I'll say, okay, that's great. Thank you for providing that, but this is what we're gonna do. And then I'll provide my plan. It shows all of the changes, and then I'll provide elevations of each space.
Okay.
And then each elevation, it would show specifics. Now this is important for when the crews come. So when the plumbing crews come, they have measurements from left to right.
And how long does it take to put something like that together?
Oh, this has been, this will be, I think, 16 months start to finish.
16 months long.
Then she dives into the look of the home.
Now we're going to dive into the look. How do you want the space to look? How do you want the exterior to look? And start putting together components, lighting, driveway details, garage details. Yeah.
Okay.
This deep dive covers everything from wall plaster, archways, furnitures and appliance selections, plumbing, and so much more.
We do everything from selecting the toilets to the sinks and the faucets and lighting. And
is that part fun at all? Like having to pick out this stuff? Like,
people are very opinionated about their plumbing. So I feel like we have to kind of get their guidance, especially for finish. And then once it gets going, it's okay. The plumbing is always the finishes are fine. It's getting all the pieces parts. So every brand is valve specific. So if I choose a specific brand of wall filler, I have to make sure that I have the corresponding valve and a rough-in that goes in. So it's a lot of like building things with parts. It can be a little tedious.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
AI technology is being felt throughout every industry. The design industry is no exception. With countless new programs providing more accessibility and creating rendering for clients, the expectations are very high.
Artificial intelligence really hasn't affected my industry too much. I definitely feel like the digital impact and like renderings and stuff like that have been a big component, and it's also something, it used to be like, oh, well, we'll do that for our high-end clients, but now it's like everybody, because of HD TV, and because programs are becoming more accessible, even like simple ones that kind of look like The Sims, people can do it on their own, so they really expect it. But I kind of mentioned it earlier too, it's become a very good tool for us to like sell a project and also to get the client a good understanding of what's happening. So like, if you're a client and I'm showing you like, this is going to be great, you're going to love it. And you're like, what in the world am I looking at? I don't even know what this is. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is your kitchen. It's going to have this cool table. Right. And I'm sure people are like, what? I just see some squares. I don't know what I'm looking at. And, we do these elevations, but I mean, if you look at this and then I say, okay, let me just show you what I mean. And then
when you say elevation, what is that?
That means like the face of something. So it could be the elevation of an exterior. It could be like looking at that cabinet. It's like a drawing of the face of something.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but if you see that little line drawing that I just showed you, the elevation, but then you see this, you're like, now I got it. That's way easier. Now it looks like a photo, So now the client can really understand what they should expect and what they're going to get. Now, occasionally you have that client that's like, but my backyard doesn't look like that. That's okay.
Looking at this data to me is like looking at a foreign language. However, for Christina, this is totally her language. It's obvious to me she really knows her stuff.
So how did you find confidence to get to that place? Like, because when you first started, were you like nervous? Like, did you go to projects like, oh, I don't know if it's good, to the point where now you're like, no, like this is good. Like, or do you still deal with that?
Yeah, no, I'm always nervous, like a little bit, and I think that's good. Like it keeps you accountable to yourself, right? Like, especially when you work for yourself, there's nobody checking to say like, oh, like, I don't know, like, did you check this or did you check that? I mean, like, I do that within my company, but like nobody's doing that to me. Like, so I feel like a healthy little bit of nervousness is good to keep you on your toes and keep you accountable for yourself. But it definitely isn't like, when I first started, I can remember the very first little job I got, my official like paid gig, it was window treatments. Like, we do window treatments like for every job, like it's not even a thought. Like you pick the fabric and you do the size and the hardware, and it's just like, okay, what else we have? You know, it's just another thing. But it was my first paid job, and I was like, I mean, I literally had a nightmare the night before the install that like we went to put it up and everything fell down. You know, like all the curtains fell down and like the drywall came off. And like, think about that now, it's like so ridiculous. It was such a small little nothing job, you know, but it's all relative. So when you're first starting, you're nervous about everything. Are people going to like it? Is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be the right size or whatever? But you know, with practice and time, you have all of that knowledge base. And I think the nervousness for me is more like I know my clients, I get to know my clients well enough. I know what they're going to like and what they're not going to like, and I keep them involved in the process. It's more like, am I going to feel satisfied with it? Is it going to hold up to my standard? And then I still always feel like, because this is an artist thing, right? It goes back to that everything being personal. When you publish something, you're like, people are gonna hate this, and they're gonna pick on me for this or that. They're gonna be like, why did you keep that outlet white when it's on a black wall? And you know, this finish could have been so much better. And weird, like that self-doubt that kind of always creeps in when you do something that has a personal attachment.
Yeah, it's always interesting trying to like deal with that or balance with that, especially because you're like, you don't want to care what people think, but at the same time you do. So it's like finding that balance to be like, no, this is good. It's okay.
For sure.
Interior design doesn't only take into account the basic concepts like function, balance, and emphasis to create a beautiful and harmonious space, but it also takes into consideration the needs of the people that will be visiting or living there.
So how do you guys pick out like the different types of curtains? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so it kind of starts at the concept, you know, like when we're trying to get the feel for the space, like knowing that this is kind of a sort of a swanky, high-end area where he's sometimes working from home, but the majority of the time he's out of the office. And then they use the space for like entertaining and doing wine tasting. It was like, okay, we wanted to kind of exude that feeling of like being in a wine room where it's usually a little dark, it's very comfortable. So we put layered lighting. You could see as kind of I was turning it on, like you can dim everything way down and make it dark and nice ambient lighting, or you can put it on for a lot of function. And then we created this little seating area here so that everybody can have like a wine tasting, and then they have a 2,000 bottle wine room.
Oh wow, I didn't see that.
In here, yeah. Okay. So as the color concept and palette started to come together, you know, I picked this velvet, which I thought would just feel like very luxurious. And then we picked a paint color to be like tone on tone monochromatic, and kind of grew from there. So a lot of times people want to start with paint, and I never allow that to happen because you might love a paint color, but it's so dependent on what you're pairing it with.
Okay.
And paint can definitely change color depending on the time of the day, how much cloud coverage you have in the sky, as well as the temperature of the lighting that you use within a space. So in here, we intentionally used a warm light because of the overall feel that we wanted. Okay. And we also had these existing floors that we had to sort of work with, which are not the easiest tone to work with. Yeah. So we tried to use this warm tone of light to kind of reflect that warmth that's in the floor. And when we chose some accent pieces like the wallpaper that you're seeing over there, we also chose a very warm coppery undertone to kind of filter back to that light. Yeah. So yeah, it was very helpful.
So you definitely, there's a lot of layers that you need to know. It's not just like slap something on and call it a day.
Yeah, like, no, you have to know how everything is going to relate to the next thing and what it's going to be next to and how's it going to feel when it's all together in a space. And I'll show you happily the before pictures too from this one.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Love it.
Different.
Those even look bigger now when you guys did it. Interesting. Yeah, it brings so much. You brought so much character to the space.
COVID had a severe impact on most industries. Though it has been a few years since COVID hit, the impact is still felt in the interior design world.
So you can see, like, we're still suffering the consequences of pandemic mode because we're missing a chair. These desk chairs been rescheduled for like 3 times now. I think it's supposed to come in December. So, yeah.
Every room has its own needs and designs. A key part of design is knowing how to choose the right fabrics and materials for the space.
So this is going to be her runner for the floor. And then we're doing a bench, so it's going to have a couple pillows. So we'll have this nice tan one with a lot of texture. And then the bench fabric will be this linen. And then these will be our other pillow fabrics. So just to bring a little fun, little life to the laundry room. So this is going to be like a bench area, kind of like a drop zone. So they're coming in from their garage and you have keys and jackets and whatever. We're going to place some hooks here so that you can hang umbrellas, jackets. And then this is where the bench is going to go that I was speaking about earlier. So there'll be a wooden top and then there'll be a cushion with all of the pillows and then the rug runner will go here.
It's so important to emphasize this for people who desire to have interior design, construction, or renovations done.
Looking at all this, we really do that in like 5 minutes.
Come on, done. Tell me what you want. I'll do it in 5 minutes.
I'm like, that's not a 5-minute
Right?
thing.
And you can understand why you're like, really? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't set me up for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think timeline is something that people struggle with too.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of delays because of the pandemic, because of whatever. I mean, like all of the things that we can all list.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of delays with furniture deliveries, specialty items, and that sort of thing. So I think like just kind of having a realistic expectation for timelines is good, because we kind of live in a instant gratification sort of society.
Yeah, exactly.
And real life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. Wish it would, but it does not.
Me too.
So it was red before.
Red, bright red. Yep. And it also had this like really big like awkward space between the toilet and the wall. It's like she had flowers there, so I was like, well, let's not do that.
What is your thoughts like when you see your projects, whether from start to finish, like what it goes through your mind, like when you see your completed work and knowing that you had a hand in that?
Yeah, I think it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so much work and it also is so much work over so large of a length of time that like when you finally see everything coming together, it's just really satisfying. It's just all of that time that you spent toiling and reworking, and then you see the end result and it's just like, this is great,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So what would you say to your like former self, like when you were first starting off, like what would you say to her now being where you're at? Like what would you tell her?
I would say think bigger. Like I'm always trying to like think bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's good advice, like for anybody, no matter what you're doing. Sometimes it's hard to think big when you're busy because you're just trying to get done. Like we're all just trying to get through the day and get the tasks off of our list, But I think it's really important to not think about where you are, but to think about where you want to go, because it's the only way to get there. You have to just constantly push yourself and just think big.
Yeah. And if people wanted to reach you, how could they reach you?
So you can reach me on my website, which is www.cruiseinteriorsinc.com, or you can reach me on Instagram at cruiseinteriorsinc.
Of course, there's still one more thing we must know.
Fun fact about me. I play jiu-jitsu, which I love. It is a mixed martial arts. It's super high contact sport, very sweaty and gross, and I love it. And what else? I'm a dancer, so I do all kinds of dancing, ballroom dancing, Latin dancing. I love to travel. Those are my fun facts.
Interior design is a world that is far more complex than television will ever show. Finding the right person who can help you bring to life the vision you desire is key. Making sure that person is equipped and knows what they're talking about is so important, because it can be the difference between your wallet and your comfort. I can confidently say Christina is worth the bill. Her work speaks for itself, and her knowledge is proof that you will be in good hands. Thank you, Christina, for inviting us into your world and reminding us all the importance of learning, knowing your stuff, and hiring a good interior designer. Here's to a bright future and continuing success for Christina and her team. This is the road to 1,000 with 996 more to go. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and check out any episodes you may have missed. And don't forget to subscribe for more explorations, discoveries, and truths. Thanks again for watching. My name is Ruth, and I'm out.
And then you're going to step forward and put your feet together. And then we're going to step forward with the left foot. So 5. Replace the weight. 6. 7. Then you got to get your elbows in your moving.
Oh man! So if I don't look good on this, it's Christina's fault. No,
it's not my fault. I was the teacher.